Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to In the Money Stocks Radio. Today we have a very special guest joining us. He is the publisher of Trends Journal. His website is trendsjournal.com. We'd like to welcome Mr. Gerald Celente. Gerald, thank you for joining us today. We're glad to have you with us. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Excellent, excellent. Gerald, we're traders here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. We trade stocks, bonds, commodities, and we also trade gold. I know that you've been an investor in gold for a very long time. What is your feeling and your take on the gold market right now?
Well, actually, I began trading gold and buying gold since 1978. And I went through the time when, in 1980, when it fell from I bought it actually on the highest point of the trading day. I believe it was January 20th, 1980 at 875, and I think it closed at 850 that day, and then it was downhill from there. So I remember the emotion back then. This is a very different climate. Back then, there was no Russia. Everything was locked behind the Iron Curtain. Soviet Union, China, forget about it. Nobody. I remember at dinner, eat your dinner, because the kids in China would love to have as much food as you do.
Love to have a meal, yeah.
Yeah, and the same thing with India. So they were, it wasn't a big gold market then. It wasn't globalization. It was the Americans and some of the Japanese, basically, that were the big buyers in those days. Now it's global. So there's two different markets. Of course, there's the manipulated markets, which are the commodity markets, the trading commodities. And I say that because we know just recently from the Barclays announcement and on, that the markets are rigged. You know that the LIBOR rate, the interest rates are rigged. You know that the Forex, the $5.3 trillion worth of currencies that are traded each day are rigged. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are facts.
Well, we know Barclays for sure, right? We saw that last week, and it was a host of other big, large banks as well.
Yes, and when you read the comments, by the way, particularly in papers like the Financial Times, everybody there that knows what's going on knows the game is rigged. So going back to answer your question, number one, this is a very different market than it was before. Number two, I can see gold going down to the 1100s. And I don't see it going much lower than that. But the upside is much greater. Accounting for inflation, gold never got back where it was back in 1980. Oh, it hit like 1921 or something at the highest point in the run-up in 2011. It should have been around, 2050, 2075, just accounting for inflation. So then what we have is not only the manipulation, but you have this record low interest rates that are fueling the equity markets and doing nothing else. Because, for example, you look at the latest data coming out from Japan, Abenomics, in terms of quantitative easing in their GDP, is 3 times the amount that the U.S. did, relative to GDP. Yeah.
We're going to talk about Japan in a little while.
Yeah, and now you look at their latest retail numbers. They're terrible. Look at the retail numbers that just came out in the States. They're down. So, to me, gold is a rigged game. I'm in it for my golden years, as I always say. I don't sell it. And I believe it's going to, when it breaks past 1475, that's our breakout point, you're going to see the beginning of the next gold bull run. Because here's our scenario. They have to stop with these low interest rates. They can't keep it going forever. This is unprecedented in world history, where interest rates are so low, not only in the States but in Europe as well, and all the quantitative easing. Oh, by the way, the numbers came out in India as well, and their GDP climbed way, way below expectations. And they had to raise interest rates to protect the rupee. So they're going to see them lowering them again. What I'm saying is that when the tapering ends, interest rates go up, you're going to see the global economy go into cardiac arrest. The only thing that's been propping up in China, same thing, is all this cheap dough. Now, when that happens, and you're going to start seeing the implications, because this is totally an interest rate recovery, they're going to try to raise interest rates. Interest rates are going to go up. The world economy is going to go on a stall and a steep decline, and then they're going to come out with something else to pump more money in and to devalue the currencies. That's when I believe you're going to see gold spike again, and this time, it's going to be off to the races.
Well, funny that you say that. Next week, we're supposed to hear something out of the European Central Bank where Mario Draghi is supposed to announce some type of quantitative easing over there if they don't have it already. So just think about it. If they lower interest rates over there, again, probably by a quarter or a half point, that's all they have left before they start to create negative rates like we have here in the U.S., basically. What is left here? I mean, where does the marketplace say, hey, this is an insane world we're living in. I don't want to be in stocks anymore. Does that ever occur?
No, the marketplace doesn't say that, because when you see what's going on in the markets, as long as interest rates are low, your merger and acquisition opportunities continue. And you're seeing it with the fight between Pilgrim's Pride and Dyson, for example.
Right.
Yeah. So exactly. you have the mergers and acquisition. That's what's driving the market, is the cheap money. And so that's what we're saying. And you're talking about Draghi, another former Goldman Sachs guy. They're all Goldman Sachs guys.
Yeah, well, we're going to get more into that in a little bit.
Yeah, but anyway, they're talking about negative interest rates in Europe, where you're going to have to pay the bank to hold your money.
Exactly. Well, it's in a form. It's almost already occurring.
It is. And, when I was a young man, they used to have this thing they used to call savings accounts. And they used to encourage people to put their money in a bank, and you get a return on your savings that was greater than the inflation rate, so that when you got older you can retire with a nest egg. That's all gone. What do you get now? 0.1%. You get nothing.
Yeah, you get 0.1% if you're lucky.
Yeah,
it's a shame. Now,
so again, what we see is that they're going to have to raise interest rates. It's an interest rate recovery. When interest rates go up, the economy goes down. Then they're going to come out with another money dumping scheme. And that's when we believe you're going to see gold prices take off again.
Well, I have a cycle for gold to start to move higher in the month of July. And, we actually put a decent low in. Gold actually put a decent low in late December. And it really made a nice little counter move. Now, if gold can stabilize here, I'm thinking that as soon as December comes, as soon as July comes, we could start to see a move higher in gold.
Well, interesting, because I remember back when I was a young guy, when I started trading in the late 70s, and I remember one summer, boy, when no one was watching, gold prices really took off, and you could kind of have that kind of volatility as well, because trading drops off somewhat as well. And summer, it can be that kind of period where you can see a spike while people aren't watching it closely. So, I would tend to agree that, there's a plausible outcome with that as well. I'm not a chart guy, I don't know. But to me, it makes sense on other levels.
Gerald, let's switch gears here a little bit. Can we talk a little bit about Japan? You elaborated a little bit on it. Their debt ratio is massive. I think it's 300 times their GDP. Is Japan the first country to fall? Because that's what I see happening. I look at this yen carry trade that's going on right here, using the U.S. dollar versus the Japanese yen. And a few years ago, when this quantitative easing all began in late 2008, when the U.S. dollar index would decline, the stock market would go up. Now when the U.S. dollar index moves up, the stock market goes up with it, all because of this yen carry trade. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's not going to be that simple as I see it, because here's what goes on. You can have the economic crisis beginning to unfold and hitting everyone in the face, and all of a sudden there's problems in the South China Sea. And Japan and China start getting into a scrimmage. So the problems become covered up with war talk and actions of war. And it's heating up already. not only with China, but with the Philippines, with Vietnam. And so what I'm saying is that it's usually not that clear. So what they do is they cover up the catastrophe and they call it another problem caused by something else. So it deflects the people's attention away. I can give you an example. You saw what happened a couple of weeks ago when the United States said that China was hacking American businesses' computers.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's front page story. What, are they kidding with this stuff?
I know.
I mean, NSA is spying on all of us. They're probably listening into this conversation. And now what I'm saying, but you saw how effective it was.
Right.
And how they divert the people's attention. And
so
that's what I believe.
Smoke and mirrors.
Exactly. And it's all being set up now in Japan because Abe has pushed the nation into an aggressive military situation. And they're already building their military, and they're disregarding the charters that were set up following World War II to keep them a pacifist nation. So I believe it's in the cards.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, real quick, the problems going on in Russia and the Ukraine, is that going to affect our energy markets?
I don't believe I don't believe so.
How is that for Europe?
Yes, it will affect Europe's, but Europe isn't going to let that happen. The United States is as anyone who reads the Trends Journal or follows Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, and his website is paulcraigroberts.org, and he, of course, was the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan. He's covered this better than anyone I know. He's also a contributor to the Trends Journal.
Excellent.
This whole Ukraine situation was initiated by the United States. And all they have to do to answer your energy questions and the other questions is go to YouTube and put in Victoria Nuland, Nuland, December 13th, 2013, and there she is at the National Press Club, having come back from a fourth visit to Ukraine, and it's sponsored by Chevron, big Chevron sign over his shoulder. And Chevron
I know Joe Biden's son got a job too over there.
Yeah, with Burisma Energy, or Hunter Biden. When you're important, you put an initial in front of your name.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden. And he's now on the board of directors of Burisma Energy, which is the largest energy company in Ukraine, along with John Kerry's stepson's partner, Devon Archer. And his stepson is Christopher Hines, of the Hines fortune, and he's partners with Archer in a capital firm. And he too, Archer was appointed to the board of Burisma. So yes, you go back to the Chevron story. They just cut a deal with Ukraine prior to Victoria Nuland's speech for $10 billion to do hydrofracking. So the energy is a longer play, and Europeans are not going to alienate Russia as the United States is, because they're much bigger traders with Russia. I think we only do about $50-something billion in trade with Russia a year, and about 30% of their energy in Europe is reliant upon Russia. So I don't see it being a problem for now, but I do see a long-term issue where the United States is going to play into that market and weaken Russia over the long haul. That's their aim anyway, but of course, Russia just cut what, a $400 billion deal with China.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, Putin's is a savvy chess player, so to speak. He's just not going to roll over and play dead here.
These are the Russians. I mean, if Napoleon couldn't take him out, if Hitler couldn't take him out, you think Cameron's, Hollande, or Obama are going to be able to do it? I mean, you don't mess with the Russians. I don't know why people can't get this in their head. They'll die to the last person eating sunflower seeds. You don't poke the bear. No, I'm serious.
I know you are. I know you.
You don't mess with Russia. And what I mean, look at the victories the United States could chalk up with its military. Hey, great job in Vietnam. Well, if you gave us more firepower and we could have killed more than 3 million people, we would have won. All right, they gave you all the firepower you wanted in Iraq. Well, Saddam Hussein is gone. Yeah, but you destroyed the country, killed 1 million people, and what do you got to show for it? How about Afghanistan, the longest war in American history? Hey, great job in Libya, wasn't it? They had a time-limited, scope-limited kinetic action, and you're going to mess with Russia? I mean, come on, they are out of their minds.
Yeah. What is the reason, Gerald, for all of these wars, though? I mean, it seems like every time we turn around, the United States is putting their nose in somebody else's business, and these politicians continue to back it up, and I mean, with more rhetoric. What is the reason for all these wars?
It's more rhetoric and more money. It's a combination of things. First of all, you have sociopaths and psychopaths. Why do you have a crazy guy that goes around and kills several people, and becomes a mass murderer? And it's the same thing. Nobody wants to call a spade a spade. These people are out of their minds. They're sick people. And the other one is with General Dwight D. Eisenhower, 5-star general, Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces in World War II, two-term president, and he warns the nation that the military-industrial complex is robbing us of the future of our scientists, the sweat of the laborers, and the future of the children. And it's happened. So it's a combination of that. And it's like that Major General Smedley Butler at the time, the most decorated Marine of his time. And he said, war is a racket. And nobody wants to call it what it is.
Yeah.
And look, and then you see the flip sides of it, how it's killed our nation. Not only the troops that it's slaughtered, the civilians that it's slaughtered, now you have the Veterans Administration scandal. Guess what? That's been going on a long time, and the only reason these scandals come out is because of a whistleblower. I mean, and you look at every level of government, and you could find scandals of that proportion or greater. These are a bunch of losers. These are the same disgusting people you hated in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. The brown-nosed, the suck-ups, the overly ambitious, the insincere, the glad-handers. Now they're telling us what to do, and people are taking it, and they believe it.
It's amazing. Gerald, a quick question. A while back, MF Global went and filed bankruptcy. I know you had an account there, and how did you ever make out with that? I know that they weren't paying their clients. How did you make out with that?
Well, after all the accounting and all the fees that I had to put in, I probably got about 95% of it back.
Wow, you got that much back, though.
You
were able to salvage that much. What do you think about John Corzine, who was the CEO of MF Global, former CEO of Goldman Sachs, obviously, and former New Jersey governor and American U.S. senator? Nothing's happened.
The same thing I think about the rest of the slimy, sleazy politicians. Same thing I think about Tim Geithner, the former Treasury Secretary, is now on his book tour and telling me and you and everybody that bailing out the banksters was the morally right thing to do. Who is this SOB to say what's morally right? Who the hell anoints these people? And then you got B.S. Bernanke. The guy called every shot wrong, as well as Geithner. It's all in the minutes that come out 5 years after they have the meetings, and he's getting $400,000 a talk. That's what I think of it, the whole thing. There are a bunch of low-life, slimy people that are running the country, and no one wants to call them that. They get in an argument. And they'll end it up with, well, I'm voting for so-and-so because he or she is the lesser of two evils. How about putting Charles Manson in the White House? At least we got a bona fide evil in there, and you could call it what it is. And they're no different.
Well, the Federal Reserve has $4 trillion on their balance sheet. It may even be a lot more because nobody could audit the Federal Reserve, but we know just through what they're telling us that they have $4 trillion. How does $4 trillion ever get unwound back into the system?
It doesn't. Just like you don't pay off the national debt. And what it becomes is a continuing devaluation of the currency. How much
devaluing can the dollar become? I mean, how much lower can it be devalued is really the question.
It become like the Zimbabwean dollar, like the Continental. It's happened before. And that's where they're leading us. Again, anyone that has the inclination of the time, read the Fed minutes that come out 5 years late. And you'll see that no one knew what was going on as the panic of '08 hit. They don't know what they're doing. They have no exit plan.
So we just have a bunch of bankers right here that are just going to inflate the system until it just can't be inflated anymore, until people lose confidence in the system. And then it all just goes to hell in the handbasket.
Yeah, and then they take you to war.
Then they go to war.
Yeah.
Just like World War II.
Same thing. Depression, currency wars, trade wars, currency wars, real wars. It's as old as modern history.
I guess it is true that history just continually repeats itself.
Yep. It just plays a different tune.
Coming up, I believe we have this Bilderberger conference where these so-called elitists get together, and you get these top media figureheads getting together. Do these guys really come out and set agenda for the next 5-10 years? Is there any truth to that? I'm not trying to be
I believe they're playing a part in it, and but I was talking to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, and again, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Reagan. He could bring in the head of the CIA, the director, and question him under oath. And I'm looking at the paper that day, and there's Obama with his national security advisors. And I looked at this team, and I said to Craig, are these the people that are actually making decisions, or is there something going on behind the scenes? So what would you think he said?
There's something going behind the scenes.
No. He said, this is it. He said, people don't want to see what it is. They want to pretend that it's something else.
Wow.
So what you see is what you get.
What you see.
He said, are there other deals being made and other manipulations? Of course. He said, but no, this is basically it. So yeah, they'll tell. They have the agenda. They'll set it. How much they could influence it. If there's an Illuminati, they got the un-Illuminati as the front men and women. So it only could go so far. And, they only have, as I see it, they'll talk about issues, they'll talk about more globalization, they'll talk about more austerity measures, they'll talk about more foreign intervention, but it comes back down to the governments in charge. As I see it, and it has been explained to me by someone on the inside.
Real quick, I'm looking at all of these central banks printing money. You have the European Central Bank. They're going to try and do a form of quantitative easing on top of what they've already done. You have the Bank of England, the Bank of Japan. You have, obviously, the Federal Reserve, and God only knows how much money they've printed. Is there ever a time where we're just going to have a massive depression and then debt forgiveness across the board, and then they just start all over from scratch? Is that a possibility?
They'll probably do something. They'll devalue the currency, just like they did during the Great Depression. The gold was, what was gold selling for, 20, I think it was what, $23 or something, and 20 cents or something like that, 22 something.
You had Roosevelt confiscate it.
Yeah, then they confiscated it. And then the dollar, of course, was pegged to gold, right, at 22 something or 23 something.
Right.
And then when they got all the gold in, or they thought they did, they repegged the dollar to gold to $35 an ounce. Right. So in effect, they devalued the currency.
So you think that we could have a situation today where somebody could come in and take my gold and say, hey...
No, I really don't. I really don't see that happening.
You think having gold today is a good... I mean, I own gold myself personally. I've been a buyer since the early 2000s. Haven't sold a single ounce. My concern is, will they come into my house and say, hey, I know you own gold?
No, I don't see that happening. If that happens... I mean, if something like that happens, you might as well leave the country, because we're going to be looking like Syria or Yemen or Iraq or Afghanistan if it comes down to that. I don't see it going to that personally.
I want to talk about the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare as it's called. Right now, currently, we have, I believe, around $50 million on public assistance. I know that we have the federal disability is at its highest level as well of all time. With this Affordable Care Act, how is it affordable? I don't understand how the younger people are going to pay for the older people, or so to speak, or how it's going to play out. What are your thoughts on this?
I think you just take a look at the Veterans Administration. You can see what it looks like.
Well, that's not too good, but
yeah. So it's not going to. I mean, yeah, it's a loser. You know, it's a bona fide loser. And by the way, it's fascism, as I see it. The merger of state and corporate powers, just like the bailouting of the banks. Too big to fail. You know, in capitalism, there's no such thing. You know, you're never too big to fail or too small to save. You know, you're out of the game. And we're being forced to buy insurance from private companies. It's the merger of state and corporate powers, by definition, fascism. And it's a failing system already. And as I said, go into any of the systems, name it, whether it's education, healthcare, military, go into anyone. You look at them all. By their deeds you shall know them. And their deeds show that they're losers. And this is just going to be another costly loser.
Gerald, it's been an absolute pleasure. Our listeners, if you want to get a hold of Gerald, you can reach him at trendsjournal.com. I appreciate you spending time with us today. Hopefully we can have you back again. Have a great weekend, and I appreciate it once again. Take care, Gerald.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye-bye now.